Good morning, afternoon and evening my crazies, and my name's Angela and I'm the Crazy Poppy Lady, and I'd like to welcome you to today's make, which is Naughty Santa's wine box cover, hashtag number 19. Now this is a part 1 because once I'd made all the parts I realised that the video was going to be over 2 hours long. I can't inflict that on you, so I'm separating it into 2 parts. The first part will be this week, and the second part will be next week. So let's get the wine box down and show you it. There we go. It's going straight up on my shoulder because it saves me having to hold all the weights. Now I have actually got a box of wine in here. It's the cheapest one you can possibly get in Aldi's in the UK because I'm not really much of a wine drinker, but I found that when I do drink wine, the cheaper it is, the more I seem to like it. Everybody else hates it, so I end up finishing off the bottle. Brilliant way to get drunk. Right, it's normally free. But anyway, let's get back to the wine box cover. So on today's video you will be shown how to make the legs and feet. Now these are all worked in one piece, and then you'll be shown how to make the white cuff, and then we will finish off today with how to make the belt buckle. Okay, this is starting to weigh my shoulder down a bit. Now as you can see, this is a naughty wine box cover, and the reason for it isn't just the fact that it is holding a box of wine, it's because of where the tap comes out. So if you were thinking of making this for somebody but they get easily offended, it might be an idea to think of somebody else. Right, but otherwise, that, as you can see, it sits beautifully up on a shelf. It would sit beautifully on top of a cupboard, on top of your fridge freezer, or even on the table at Christmas, or the edge of the table I should say at Christmas. Right, so there is a pattern available for this on my Ravelry store. Now if you have purchased the pattern or you're planning to purchase the pattern, go do it now. The reason for this is you gain early access to video number 1 and video number 2 in this set. So it's a little added bonus for you because you're paying real money out. Right, so for everybody else, time to get your pens and paper out and time to get writing. Right, now for the details. Now it's time for your supply list. Right, so to start off with, you're going to need a wine box. Okay, so of course, as I told you earlier, I got mine from Aldi. It was the cheapest one they had on the shelf. Okay, other wines and wine boxes are available, and of course I will explain to you in this video how you can upsize or downsize the project to fit your wine box that you've bought. Right, so our next item up we're definitely going to need is a 4.5mm hook. We're going to need a pair of scissors. You're also going to need a darning needle and some stitch markers. Let's move them off. Now for the best bit, what yarn are you using? We are going to need 100 grams of a black and 200 grams of red. Now the yarn I have chosen to use is Signet Pato Everyday DK. This is quite a nice thick DK. It is a 100 gram ball and it has a 270 meters in it. It's 100% acrylic and it can be washed, but it can't be tumble dried or ironed, but it's a machine washable at 40. So there we go. Right, so there is, as I said, 100 grams of the black, 200 grams of the red. You're going to need a small amount of white, so that's really something you might be able to pull out of your scrap bin. And then for the belt buckle, I had a really amazing find. I came across this Sparkle Glamorous yarn, which is £2.99 in B&M. Now this is a chain spun yarn. Let's hope the camera focuses in. There we go. And it's silver with a glitter running through it as well. So for me this was really good, but of course if you haven't got that you can use a different type of grey yarn with a sparkle running through it. Now that is nearly all of your supplies. You are also going to need, oh, let's move these out of the way, a big chunk of A4 paper, a tape measure to work out your sides, and a pen, because we're going to cheat and we'll be drawing around our actual box to work out our sizing later on, but that won't be until the part 2. Right, you are also going to need some elastic. Okay, now this elastic I have here is 1 inch thick by 1 meter long. Okay, so it's 1 inch thick by 1 meter long. I'm sorry, I don't have the package in here anymore to show you, and I haven't got another one. I'm just holding my pants. Right, so now it's time to make our feet. We are going to be making 2 of these. Okay, I may need to adjust my camera slightly. Right, now my camera does not like working with black, and it does not like working with red, and it doesn't matter if it's on the wood background, the white background, or this green one. Yes, that's right, I've filmed this whole section 3 times. So now I'm giving up on working with red and black. I am moving to green and pink. Now the green is in place of the black, and the pink is in place of the red. Okay, it'll look a bit confusing, but hopefully you'll remember that as we go along. So now it's time to start. We are going to be taking our 4.5mm hook and also our green yarn. Now we are doubling up on our green yarn. Okay, so to start off with, we are going to make a slip knot and pop that on your hook. Now it's a case of chaining up 7, making sure that you catch both of those strands of yarn, right, we will be working into both sides of this chain. Okay, so keep a close watch on where I put my hook. Right, so to start off with, we are going to be working in the 2nd chain from the hook, and we are going to be placing in there a stitch, and then we're going to stitch the next 4. Okay, just like that. And then in our very last slip stitch, we are going to place 3 stitches. And as you can see, our work is automatically turned on its own. Right, so and now I'm going to be working over my tails. You don't have to, you could just hold them out of the way. But I'm working over my tails, and for the next 4 stitches, the next 4 chains, I'm going to be placing in a stitch. Just like that. Right, so and now into that very last stitch we are going to add an increase, so that is 2 stitches in the same place. Okay, and that is the end of round 1. Now we don't join our rounds, we just work directly into the first stitch of the next round. Okay, so this is where I like to add a piece of scrap yarn, and because for me I'm forgetful and I forget what row I'm on, so this way I weave my yarn as I go so I can go back and count what row I'm on. But if you're more confident at remembering what row you are on, and just pop your stitch marker here. Right, so now we go back into that very first stitch and we create a stitch, and then we put another one in there as well, so that very first stitch has an increase in it. So remember, an increase is 2 stitches in the same place. Right, so now we are going to work along for a count of 5. Just like that. Now in the next stitch we will be placing an increase. So an increase, remember, is 2 stitches in the same spot. Into the next stitch we will be placing an increase. Now we are going to work 5 stitches along this side. Now in our last stitch we are going to do an increase. Now if you've done your stitch pattern correct, you will have 18 stitches going round. Now on to round 3. So move your marker up or flick it over as I just did. Pop your hook straight into that very first stitch. Now on this first one we are placing an increase, 2 stitches in the same spot, and then we are going to come down the side of our work for a count of 7. Now we are going to place an increase in the next 2 stitches. Now work down this side for a count of 7. Now into our next stitch we are going to do an increase. This is also our last stitch. So now if you count round your stitches you will have 22. So move your marker up or flick it backwards or forwards. Now for row number 4 and row number 5 you are just going to go all the way around. So I will meet you back here at the end of row number 5. Okay, so and now we are back for round number 7. So bring your marker up, and this round is going to be decreases, so listen very carefully for when I say decrease. I will show you how to do it as well in case you don't know. We'll be using the invisible decrease method today. Right, so to start off with, on this round we are going to stitch 7. Now for our decreases we are going to be doing 4 decreases in a row. Okay, so to decrease, what you're going to do is place your hook at the bottom of your stitch and pop it up through the loop coming out of the middle, making sure you pick up both of those strands of yarn, but only on the front loop. We will then move directly to the next loop and pick that front loop up as well. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. Now we're going to hook over, pull our yarn through, hook over and pull through 2, and that finishes off the stitch and you barely notice it. Okay, so now this is where it gets a bit awkward and you've got to be very careful when picking up your next stitch. If you look, you could quite easily go into the stitch that you've already worked. So to check this, turn your work so the V's are facing you and give it a gentle tug and you'll see which one's moving. So you know not to work into this one, but to work into the next one. Okay, so that was increase number 1, and now we're on to increase number 2, and we do exactly the same steps as last time. Pick up your front loop only on the next 2 stitches, hook over and pull through, hook over and pull through 2. Okay, so that's and decrease number 2 of 4 done. Takes a little while and it might take you a little bit of practice to get this bit done, so I'm going to take it slowly and hope that you're keeping up with me. It's number 3. So that's in through both loops, front loop only, hook over, pull through, hook over, pull through 2. Okay, so hopefully you've done those. Now we're going to work a single crochet into the next 7 stitches. I've already done 1 because I had to pause. And the last one, number 7. At this point you should have 18 stitches. If you haven't got 18, you may find that you have picked up one of your decrease loops that I pointed out a few moments ago. So double check your numbers and then come back to the video. Now for a row 7. Again, this one is a decrease row. So we start off with doing our single crochet in the next 5 stitches. Okay, and now we are going to decrease 4 again. So let's pick up the front loops of the next 2 stitches, hook over, pull through, hook over and pull through 2. We're going to do that 4 times, or another 3 I should say, so that's number 2. Okay, so once you've got those 4 decreases done, it's a case of placing a single crochet in the next 5 stitches. Okay, so that is a row 7 complete. Now on to a row 8. If you look, we are starting to get a very smaller hole here. That's to be expected, don't worry. Now this is our last load of decreasing. So, and now we are going to place our hook in, do our first stitch, and in total place 5 stitches in. So that's number 2, number 3, and 5. And there we go. Now we are going to decrease over the next 2 stitches, and we're going to do that 2 times. So I can't actually see what I'm doing when I record, so this is quite awkward for me at times. Right, So there is decrease number 1. And decrease number 2. Now we're going to carry on by adding a single crochet in the next 5 stitches. So at the end of this row you should have 12 stitches, and for the rest of this project you will have 12 stitches to work. Right, so and now on to rows 9 through to 13. Okay, now these are in black, 2 strands, and you're just going to work round and around and around your 12 stitches until you have 13 rows. Once you have 13 rows, come back to the video. I'll see you soon. Right, so that is rows 14 through to 25. You will have 12 stitches each round. I will meet you back here when you have completed row 25. Right, so here we are at the end of row 25. Now this is how hopefully your boot is now looking. Remember, this bottom bit's in black and this section here will be in red. Right, so last few stitches left to go now is on row 26. We are only going to do the next 4 stitches. Okay, which will take your boot round to the side like that. Now the reason for this is we will be folding this top section and working through these stitches when it comes to joining it onto your main part, body of your wine box holder. So this way it makes it nice and flat and easier for you to work. Okay, so it's a case of once you've done those 4 stitches, into the next one and do a slip stitch. Okay, hook over, pull up your yarn and cut it off. Okay, you don't need a long tail for this one because of course we won't be sewing. Yay! I hate sewing. Right, now the next thing that we need to do to this boot is to stuff the leg. Okay, so just pop some stuffing in. Ideally do this as you go, but I'm too lazy. I just go round and round and round and then fight with it later. Right, so we shove some stuffing in. It doesn't have to be a great deal of stuffing, not compared to the foot. Okay, it is just enough so that it holds its form. So as you can see, I like to roll it in my hand so then I can feel if I've got enough in the different areas. Okay, and I don't need a great deal poking out the top because of course that bit there gets folded like that. Right, so now I'm going to leave you to rewind this section of the video and make yourself another leg. And I will meet you back here so that we can make the main body of the wine box. Right, so here we go. We are about to make our boot cuffs. Now remember, you will need 2 of these. Okay, so to start off with, what we're going to do is grab our yarn and make a slip knot. Pop that onto your hook. Okay, now we are just going to chain up 15. Keep these quite loose. That was me jumping the gun there. Right, so once you have your chain of 15, we're going to work half double crochets into it. So hook over and go into your second loop from the hook, or second chain, sorry, from the hook. Hook over, pull up your yarn, hook over and pull through all 3. We're going to do 2 of those in that same space. followed by a chain 1. Into our next chain space we are going to do 2 half double crochets followed by a chain 1, and we're going to do that all the way down to the bottom. So that's just 2 half double crochets and a chain 1. Now your work will curl, so don't worry too much, it will sort of straighten itself out later on, but you can keep these quite loose, you don't have to pull them tight at all. Okay. So that is a chain 2, sorry, 2 half double crochets and a chain 1. Now I'm hoping this white isn't blowing out the camera too much. I've had to change all the background. As you can see, I've now got a dark green background on it for the moment. Luckily I managed to pick up this material a little while ago, so I thought I'd give it a go, as the white background was bouncing the light off of the yarn and blowing the camera. You just couldn't make out any of the stitch work really. You needed a pair of sunglasses to watch it. Right, so we're coming up on the end now, or nearly, a couple more to go. Right, so into our very last chain we are going to do the same stitch pattern, but we're going to do it twice. So that's 2 half double crochets followed by a chain 1, and then a further 2 double crochets, sorry, 2 half double crochets and a chain 1 into that same place. Okay, so if I show you it there, it's 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1. Now we're going to be working down the other side. Oh, getting in a right angle. Down the other side of the chain, and as you can see here, you can see these little gaps. Just stick your hook in them. We don't have to be too precise. Right, so again we are going into the next stitch there, or sorry, the next chain, and we're going to do 2 half double crochets, chain 1, and do that all the way down. I also like to work over my yarn as I go as well, sort of the tail, bit less sewing in then, isn't it? Because you all know me, I hate sewing. Right, so I am going to do the rest of this row off camera, and I will meet you back at the bottom in a few moments. Right, so you've done those 14 all the way along, and our very last set of half double crochets and the chain 1 is going into the very first spot that we started off at, where there's already 2 half double crochets. So you put 2 in there, chain 1, and then we find the top of our first half double crochet, pop your hook in, pull up a stitch and close it with a slip stitch. Okay, hook over, pull through again, and then pull up enough yarn and give yourself a decent tail before you cut it off. Right, so cut that off, pull the yarn tight, and there is your boot cuff. Now don't worry about it if it's going all wibbly wobbly, because when we attach it it's going to go wibbly wobbly anyway. Right, so and now to grab the leg that you want to pop it on. Right, so now it's time to place your cuff onto the leg. Now I've stupidly finished my project and left this till the last minute. Right, so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to show you where I sew it on as best I can. Right, so let's grab my hook and point it out. if you look here, you have the gap between your red and black. Okay, you're going to be sewing in amongst these stitches, so you're going to go under these ones here. Okay, so that is the very last row of black. Don't worry if you end up going into the red, it's not going to make much difference. All of your disastrous sewing, if it's anything like mine, will be covered by the cuff itself. Now what we do need to do though is start with the back of the leg. Okay, and the reason I start at the back is solely because it covers the join later on. As you can see here, this is the join, and of course this is going to be sitting against a wall or a cupboard, so it's not going to get seen. Okay, so no, this was such a bad idea trying to do it on camera. Right, okay, so we grab our leg, we flip it round so we're on the back section. You are going to go under your black stitch and pull up your yarn. Okay, then I'm going to thread it back through the same place where the knot is. I just find it makes it sit neater, and pull it tight. Okay, then we'll go back under that stitch and out the other side. Hopefully you can see that. Now all we're going to do is work down the middle of our work. Okay, weaving with the yarn, weave it in and out of where the chain is, so you'll be able to see like the little gaps and things. You just weave it into the chain, pick up the stitch and pop it through, back in again, out the other side, and then under, and we do that all the way around. Now don't worry if you get a bit gathering in some places and puckering, because I've made it so that this is actually going to be longer than what you will need to go round. Okay, so you don't have to be precise and finicky and all that, you just give it a good guess and hope for the best. And every now and then, and just take it and move it round the leg and check the distance to see how much more you need to gather as you go. Okay, and it is that simple. Just in that centre section and then under that stitch. Okay, and you carry on going all the way around. I'll meet you when I get to nearly the end. Right, so we're coming up near the end now, and I've just got to the point where my colours dip, and as you can see, once the cuff goes on, that is not going to be noticeable from either side. Okay. So if, like me, you've got a big chunk left, all we do is we skip one of the areas and give ourselves a little bit of an extra fold in the boot cuff. Okay, and then we'll just go back in and come out in the centre of the other side. Okay, and then that'll pull that tight, and then it's just a case of neatening up our edging. You can do that however you feel comfortable doing it. As you can see with me, I just dab it and hope for the best. As I said, I hate sewing and I'm not exactly the best at it, but and this is just as a guide as to where I've found best to place my sewing, my darning needle. Okay. then we just go back through, tie off your yarn, and then hide it in amongst the leg. And that's it, you're all done. Now it's time to work on to your body. Oh, I forgot to say, now we just do that, squidge them together, and that gives you your extra fluffy bit. Right, so and now it is time to make your belt. Now for the belt I am using the Sparkle Glamorous yarn, okay, that I got from B&M in the UK. Now this yarn, as you can see, has got a sparkle, focusing camera, and it is also a chain spun. Now I'm going to be using 2 strands of this whilst making the project, making the belt. Right, let me undo this one. Don't freak, it's okay. It is that easy and that quick to do that we'll have this belt knocked up in about the same amount of time it took me to undo it. Now to make our belt buckle, what we're going to be doing is using the foundation half a double crochet stitch. Okay, now this one is really lovely and really easy once you get it in that brain cell. Right, so I'm going to take it slowly and hope I get my words around the right way today. Right, so let's start by creating a slip knot and placing that on our hook. Now we're going to chain up 2, hook over, and place our hook through that very first chain, pull up a loop, keeping that loop nice and loose. Okay, now we're going to hook over again and pull our yarn through that very first loop. Now hook over and finish off the stitch by pulling it through all 3 loops on your hook. Now we are going to do that 6 times. Okay, so that's number 1. So ready for number 2? Hook over, turn your work slightly, and you will see a V that you've created. You're going to place your hook through that V. Okay, making sure you get both sections of the yarn and both parts of the V. Hopefully you can see that quite clearly. Now we're going to hook over, pull up a loop, keeping that loop loose. We are going to hook over again and pull through that 1. Now hook over and pull through 2. Okay, so that is our second foundation half double crochet done. Now on to number 3, following the same steps as number 2. So let's hook over, go through both parts on the newly formed V, hook over, pull through your yarn, keep that one loose, hook over, pull through 1, hook over, pull through 3. Again, so that is number 3. Now on to number 4. Number 5. And the last one, number 6. There we go. Okay, so that is the first side of our work done. Now we need to make it go this way. So we are going to chain up 2 around that post there that we've just created. We are going to do a half double crochet. Okay, so there's our corner turned. Now picking up that V that we created on the last stitch, we are going to hook over and put our yarn through that last V stitch, hook over, pull up our yarn, and carry on doing our foundation double crochets now as we've done on this section here. Okay, so that was number 1. We are now going to do another 5. remember, pick up that V that you created with that very first slip stitch there. Until you have done 5. So now we chain up 2, and we are going to be making another one of these corners and directing our work across the top of our finger. So we've chained our 2, we do a half double crochet around that last stitch. Now we are going to go back into that V that we have created and carry on with our foundation half double crochet. Now we are going to do that for a count of 6. Okay, so let's double check that one. There is your half double crochet, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 around, and then 6 foundation half double crochets. Now we're doing our last corner, so again we're going to chain up 2, half double crochet around that stitch, then we are going back to our foundation half double crochets, and we are going to do 4 this time. Okay, so when you lay your work out, it should look quite squarish. Okay, now the problem we have is joining it. So at this point we are now going to take our very first stitch here, okay, and we are going to work a half a double crochet around that very first stitch, and then a half double crochet in the stitch at the edge, okay, which will square off our work. Chain up 1 and then cut off your yarn. Now all you need to do is, with the little tail that you have at the beginning, you can use that and just sew it between this stitch and this one here. Sorry, there we go, between that stitch and the base of this foundation double crochet. That way it gives you a very nice belt buckle. Now leave yourself a decent amount of tail as well, so that when it comes to sewing it on your work you don't have to worry too much. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you really enjoyed making the feet, the cuff and the belt buckle, and of course I'll be back again next week with the other part of this video. So if you can, please stay in and definitely stay safe. Ta-ra for now everybody.